Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Business Podcast, your source for all things business. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres. Keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have Geoff Walters on the line, and he's the CEO over at Universal Owl. Geoff, welcome to the show.
Hey, Adam. It's nice to meet you.
So excited to get into what you're doing over at Universal Owl, but before we do that, let's get a little bit further into your background. So how did you get started in your career and in business?
That's a really good question. Thanks for asking. So I was a kind of self-declared nerd at school. I didn't really go out very much. I just studied a huge amount, which sort of had the effect that I didn't really have any friends. I just worked and placed a lot of my identity into my academic performance when I was younger. So this ended up with me getting very good grades, going to Cambridge University to study languages, but I didn't really have many life skills, and so that was quite formative for me, and it's sort of why I'm doing what I'm doing today. But we'll get back into that in a second. So when I graduated from Cambridge, I was expecting to walk into the professional world and sort of have everything given to me on a plate because I had just always done the right thing. I had very good grades. And I mean, as you'll know from your own experience in business, there's this huge discrepancy between what you need to be successful in school versus what you need to be successful in the real world. Mm-hmm. So I actually struggled for quite a long time. I sort of bounced around between a bunch of different jobs. I actually had 4 failed businesses before starting my 5th company, which I sold at the end of last year. And so, yeah, it was really finding my feet after investing a lot of time and energy and identity fundamentally in something that actually didn't serve me very well.
If you could, and obviously with hindsight being 2020, right? I mean, you went through multiple businesses, and I know that's we all learn from the ups, the downs, the sideways, everything in between. With failed businesses, we also learn from successful businesses. I mean, if you could go back and tell that Geoff that was just getting started with that first business, a bit of advice, what kind of things would you tell him?
Funny you should ask that because I've actually wondered recently whether I even would have got into business if I had known how hard it was going to be.
Me neither. My answer would be no. I'll share first. I'd be like, why would I ever sign up for all this pain? Go ahead, please.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, when you're 22, 23, you're sort of somewhat naive and you think that whatever you're going to do, you're going to take over the world. So my first business. I started this in 2013. It was called GovMaker. It was a political social networking platform, and my aim was to bring direct democracy to the UK by means of the social network. So, pretty ambitious when you're 23 and don't really have professional skills or life skills or connections or anything like that. It was ridiculously overambitious, and it's unsurprising that it failed. So I guess if I were to go back to myself right at the beginning of that journey, I would say sort of meet yourself where you are at in the moment and acknowledge your strengths and weaknesses realistically instead of just biting off way more than you could chew. I mean, it happened in the end that through a whole bunch of failure, as I said, my limitations in the real world were fairly rapidly shown to me. I guess what I would really hope for is that people could start engaging with their own personal limitations way earlier than I did. I really started this journey when I started to get into self-development when I was about 21, got into business when I was about 23. I'm now almost 30. I think if I could go back to being a teenager or a student, I probably would have looked to start a business, even just any old freelance thing at 18, and then just failed my way to success that way. I think that's probably the advice I'd give my younger self.
Man, that's great advice, and I love that you say that. If you could go back, you'd tell, I don't know if I'd do it. I said I wouldn't, but I did, and that's it. And now I'm stuck. So there you go. to my team that listens to this, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, probably shouldn't have said that one. That's the danger of being recorded on the podcast all day, Geoff. You just say stuff sometimes. So I want to switch it up a bit. I do want to go into what you're doing now over at Universal Owl, because I think it's an amazing business and project. Tell us a little bit more about the company, please.
Sure. Before I do that, just a quick comment on what we said before. There's a lot of hubris and ego in the world of entrepreneurship, and especially when people are getting started, there's a tendency, as I said, to think you can just take over the world and whatever you do is going to be a success. I guess in sharing my story, which is really a story of sort of sailing my way to success, I've learned sort of the hard way that the way to success is through a whole bunch of failure, and it's not going to be easy. In fact, a lot of the time it's going to be painful. And I guess I just wanted to double down on that message just so that any younger entrepreneurs who are listening to this podcast can appreciate that when you bite off a vision of a great magnitude, you bite off not only all the rewards that come with that, but all of the sacrifices and pains that come with it as well. That's, again, something I wish I would have known when I was younger.
Same here, and that's well said, and I'm glad you doubled down on it, because it's I think one of the other things that happens is I don't know when the term entrepreneur became sexy or being a business owner, but I always tell people, I'm like, it's never been, I mean, we were all farmers once upon a time before the revolution anyway, and that wasn't sexy. It was called, we had to grow food to eat and live, and you owned a business because you had to, like you were surviving. I said, all of a sudden, it's sexy and it's the thing to do. It's kind of interesting to me to see how it all comes full circle with just the way it's happened. But I do want to spend some time in Universal House. So let's get into that one.
Sure. So just to kind of return to my personal journey for some context, I had invested a lot of time and energy and ego, I guess, also fundamentally in academia, and that didn't work out for me at all. So over the last 10 years or so, I have been teaching myself a lot of different life skills, ranging from things like how to manage money, to the right kind of mindset, diet, exercise, sleep, communication skills, body language, even things like philosophy. I've taught myself a huge amount of things that are very useful to me in the real world. And I constantly get told by my friends that I give good advice and that I've got a kind of good understanding of reality fundamentally. That's like the feedback my network is giving me. So I guess Universal Owl started as an idea to say, how could we fix the discrepancy between the education system, which basically teaches us obedience, compliance, herd mentality. How can we fix the discrepancy between that and teaching people the skills they need to succeed in the real world? That's kind of the philosophy behind Universal Owl. My first principles thinking behind education is the education system should be teaching the skills that we need day to day in real life. If we're not using the skills that we learned in the education system, then what's it all for? I mean, if you just stop to think about this from a business perspective for a moment, let's imagine you set up a corporate training program, and that training program lasted 15 years. It cost maybe $200,000 per person, so quite an investment. And then at the end of that training program, the trainee was only good for a job at Starbucks. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with Starbucks per se, but when you've invested so much time and money into,
you wouldn't do it. It'd be ridiculous. I mean, you're being very politically correct, but you wouldn't do it because you're being nice. It's ridiculous. You wouldn't do it. Period. You're not going to do it.
Right. So to come back to Universal Owl, our intention is to publish over the next few years online courses to teach people the sorts of skills that I wish that someone had taught me when I was in my teens and early 20s. the audience for this business is people between 16 to 25, primarily in the UK, because that's where I'm from originally, but we're also going to go after the English-speaking market more generally.
Man, that's awesome. What are some of the, and I know you're going to have more than one module, more than one course, but what are some of the main ones that you want to target first?
Sure. So we're thinking about this at the moment, but some of the ones I have on my list here are finance, diet, exercise, sleep, communication, and then each of those will have a whole bunch of submodules. So the finance module, for example, that could be split into things like financial mindset, which itself could be split into a whole bunch of different things, how to budget, how to invest, some basic terminology when it comes to thinking about money, things like that. So we're really looking to give young people a broad education in life. That being said, some people have asked me about Universal Owl. Is this going to be an exercise in, for example, teaching people how to change a tire on a car? And the answer to that is no, because Google is
We have YouTube for that. We have YouTube for that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can look up like simple tasks and teach yourself that. If you're remotely entrepreneurial, people do that already. What Universal Owl is all about, it's about creating a community and a group of people who are interested in learning the sort of mindset and the sorts of kind of higher ideas and heuristics that have helped me sell a business and lead a successful life. They've also helped a ton of my other friends who are successful in various different ways. And having gone through, as I said, it's basically a 10-year journey at this point. I want to dedicate the rest of my life to this particular problem. My hope one day is that we can even create schools off the back of this. And I'd like to, by the time I retire, own 50,000 schools worldwide.
So I have two votes for things that I think you should do in this program. And so vote number one. This is not advice he asked for the audience. This is so my background is finance, almost 14 years in the business, and I have a theory that if everybody understood these two concepts, just these two simple concepts, that finance in the entire world would be different. And the number one is compound interest. So nobody knows how compound interest works. Yep. So that if you can, I want you to gamify compound interest. I want you to make that into a game that's embedded in everything that's on that site, like everything. I want it to be gamified. I want it to be a game. I want it to be something that can be taught in elementary school, something that people want to do. So compound interest, number one, and then if people just understood the rule of 72, like they'd be fine. Like they would be 100% fine if everybody just knew the rule of 72 like the back of their hand, like they knew their name, if they knew the rule of 72 for that. And for those listening that don't know what it is, it just means it's an estimate. It's a kind of a crude formula saying how long it takes to double your money when it's invested. Period. And you can change the variables in there. But those two things, if those two simple things were gamified and everybody actually understood them, I think the majority of everything else would naturally work itself out just with those simple concepts.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'd add to that list inflation and taxes. Like if people understood how the tax system works and people that's too
complex. That would work itself out if the other two were good. That's even I'm just telling you, that's even too complex right there, because if you did the other part, you'd have more money left. You'd know how your money's in theory supposed to grow. So those two things would make you curious enough to learn about taxes as your nest egg got bigger. So you would be forced to learn about the other one. But if you don't know those first two fundamental ones, you don't get to have the problem with taxes. Like having the problem of taxes is a luxury. It means you're making money.
You sound like my tax accountant. That's quite funny.
Well, it's true. But it's true. It's true. Like that's a good thing to have. It means you're making money. If you don't have a problem with taxes, that means it's because you don't know the rule of 72 or how compound interest works.
Yeah, Adam, it's interesting talking to you. Like the comment you just made is really like the fundamental question that we're asking ourselves at Universal Owl. What are the fundamental questions that everyone needs an answer to in order to lead.
Yeah, those are the big ones. So you tackle those big
right.
ones in different categories, and it becomes really interesting. And then you go deeper in those same categories. Where I find a lot of people kind of miss is it's like if you could spread those two concepts to the masses, gamify it, and make it something that actually stuck. To me, that and if you can do that in all the different subjects, whether it's I don't know how broad you're going, but I just mean all the different categories. So life skills, if it's health, if it's this, if you get so for example health, if you're looking at the health side, and this is not my expertise, so I may be picking the wrong variable, but maybe it's just teaching people how their body works and calories. I don't know. I'm not claiming I know that side of things, but there's always like a fundamental principle, like one simple little thread that if you have that thread and everybody understood that, it changes everything. And so for me, exactly. I know for a fact in finance, it's rule of 72. All of investing can be summed up in rule of 72, period. And how money works, compound interest. That's those two things. Those sum everything up. But I could talk to you about this all day long. I love it.
Likewise.
So that being said, if somebody's listening to this, Geoff, and they want more information on Universal Owl or to connect with you and learn more about the project, what's the best way for them to reach out?
There's a contact form at universalowl.com. So I guess I suggest reading through our manifesto on the homepage if you find that interesting. Check out some more detailed information in some of our blog posts. And then if you want to reach out to me, we're actually hiring at the moment for a few positions. So if you want to reach out to me about that or anything else, you can do so via the contact form at universalowl.com.
Oh man, fantastic, Geoff! And we're definitely I'm going to bring you back on the show when you launch. I definitely don't. So don't forget, put me on your list of media, and I'm happy to bring you on the show once you have that official launch, and happy to help you promote it and see what you came up with. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. Hope you had fun listening because we had fun making this for you. If you did, don't forget, subscribe to the podcast, leave me a review on the Apple iTunes Store, and if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, Mission Matters Business, definitely give us a subscribe there and leave us some comments in the video section. Let us know what you're working on. Love to engage and talk to you there. And Geoff, thanks again for coming on the show.